Dig a little deeper, see a little clearer, learn from the people who've been there before. Real stories, real experience, real insight. This is Ace Quiz Masterclass.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're based out of. This is episode 1 of the PM Masterclass, powered by Ace Quiz Wiz. You're seeing this at community led classes. Welcome. If you're joining us for the first time at this place, this is Atlassian Community. This is the place where we try to solve problems in the project management domain using Atlassian solutions. We do a lot of other things also. A lot of my friends who will do sessions around specific tools, specific processes. So it's good to have you here if you're joining us for the first time. If you're a regular, you already know me, but we'll probably spend 30 seconds talking about who I am and what we will cover in this new series that we've just started. This will be a very interactive session, so please feel free to use chat at all times to ask questions, share comments. If you have any doubts about the module that we'll cover today, about what we'll cover in the coming sessions, I'll try to cover all of that in the coming slides. But yeah, I'm really excited. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, but I discussed with my good friend Rob Heen, who's also a trainer and a content creator, as he calls himself on this channel. But yeah, this is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and specifically with the Teamwork Collection. So we've done variations of PM's masterclass, not calling it masterclass, but study sessions or workshops, but specifically with Jira. But I wanted to broaden the scope within the Atlassian ecosystem with what Teamwork Collection now offers. Welcome Rohit, welcome Leenam, welcome Sarah, welcome to Sen. I don't know, it's tough to pronounce some names on your YouTube channels. Welcome everybody. As I said, please feel free to use chat for any questions that you may have. We'll just get started in a minute. Let me share my screen and we will get started. All right, I am now sharing my screen. I'm just gonna make the screen layout a little better so that we have more clarity on what I'm speaking and what you're seeing as well. Do note that I have dual monitors, so I might be looking here, but I'm still talking to you guys. All right. Super excited. This is episode 1. As I mentioned, we're talking about a project idea and starting with your first project. So if you're joining us once again for the first time, we'll spend a couple of minutes about who I am, what Atlassian community does, and then we'll jump straight to it. If you know me, if you've seen some of my sessions, this is literally the first time I've prepared slides for a session. Otherwise, you know that I prefer to use either Menti or we do mostly demos. So there will be like probably around 10-15 minutes of slides, but we will keep switching between the actual Jira instance. And we'll keep showing you things that I'm talking about. So you are pretty much, aligned to what we are talking about. Before we begin, let me also start a quick poll and ask you guys, what do you think is your biggest PM superpower? So if you're a PM, if you're joining us as a project manager, what do you think is one of the, like as an icebreaker, what's your biggest PM superpower? Do you make chaos look planned? Do you survive meetings? Are you good at chasing people, getting updates from them? Or are you great at PowerPoints? Not a skill to be taken lightly. With AI, it might be lesser powerful than it used to be, but still a skill nevertheless. All right, people are voting. How you can vote is you can just enter 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the chat, and it'll start showing up in the actual poll itself. All right. As of now, it looks quite equal between making chaos look planned and chasing people. Chasing people is a superpower. 100% agree. Specifically in a world where people are remote, people are hybrid. So as a PM, if you've got that nailed down, that's really a superpower. Kudos. All right. While more people weigh in on that, let me take you on what our agenda for today is. This is what we'll cover in episode one. We do have a 6 episode series planned. So if you're joining us from community led classes, you'll have links to all the 6 chapters or all the 6 episodes, all the 6 live streams in that first uh, one itself, or second or third. We've all connected all of them. So you'll be able to get all of that. This is what we are doing today. We're going to talk about delivery approach as a project manager. We're going to talk about how you turn that approach into a correct Jira project. We're going to talk about designing workflows that will enable delivery and using AI as a project planning partner. Now, understand, we are not talking about learning Jira in this session. The goal is to be better project managers. So, you might not learn the skills of a Jira admin. A lot of my friends on this community led classes, or on even on Ace Quizbiz, or on Heen.tech, or Ape Tech tutorials, or Jira Life, will tell you how to be better Jira admin. So, if you want that, please do also check out the content that you see from their channels. This stream or this series of streams will focus purely on project management. All right. A little about me. This is who I am. This is what I've learned. This is what my experience is. I am a CAPM, CSM, SPC, an authorized instructor with Atlassian. I am first and foremost Atlassian champion. I'm also part of a small group called Atlassian Creator that has been decommissioned now, but I still proudly say it. I work with some great organizations. I currently work with a company called Nagaro. It's also a solution partner, a platinum solution partner. And along with my rockstar teammates, I work with to help customers solve their problems using Atlassian solutions. Been the ecosystem for around 8 9 years. When I say ecosystem, I mean the Atlassian community ecosystem. That's me right there in the front. I've got a beautiful wife. I have a beautiful daughter. Both of them attend events. My wife is actually a community champion herself, and I've had the pleasure of being the first APAC community leader to win an award at Teams. That's my Canon Brooks next to me. That's a precious picture that I have. All right. With that, show off is over. Let's get into the meat of the conversation today. While you're here, just looking back at the poll, it looks like making chaos looking as it was planned is a big high number on that. So kudos. That's great. Like one of the first things that one of my mentors taught me about project management was like the art versus science debate, right? Or if it's a skill that you can learn, or if it's a art that you develop, or a science, right? In that order, I've always believed that project management is like air, right? You don't see it. A good project manager will make himself as irrelevant as he could or she could, but without them, the project will definitely fail. All right, I'm looking for some comments here in the chat. Sherry says, "Can we talk about how core work for which we are here rather than talking about basic random things?" Thank you, Sherry. Yes, of course we will. That's the plan, and let's get started. So, as you can see, I've stopped the poll. I'm listening to Sherry Cool's advice here. So let's get started. As you can see, the first episode is delivery approaches, Jira setup, and workflow design. So this is what we are going to cover today. I'm also going to take you through, let me move on with my slide to the first section of today, which is choosing the right delivery approach. Let me also remove the poll from here. So when we talk about delivery approach, we are talking about how as PMs you choose between these 4 or 5 or a hybrid model or different types of project management models that you might have been experienced with, and how you deploy them in an Atlassian ecosystem, specifically with Jira, but of course Confluence, Loom, and Rovo along with you on the ride. All right. Let's look at what are the tools that you have available. So Waterfall, of course, the PMP methodology, the first and foremost, the methodology that started it all, I would say, uh, is the first one that you have right there. So you can start with the waterfall model. What is waterfall model? Let's start from that. What does the waterfall model say? So if you have fixed scope and you have a project with which You might want to do some regulatory work. If you know exactly what you're building, and you're building, and like in a model where change is expensive, right? Waterfall is the model that you would want to pick, right? So like it still has a place, like a lot of regulatory, as that's the keyword that I put in there, because a lot of people still believe that even if in the agile focus or agile centric world that we live today, a pure waterfall project, if deployed correctly, can still get you there, right? And you can use tools which, like, you can use in Jira, you can use Kanban type of project or a normal project management type model project to deploy that project as well. We have a question. Is agile methodology inside Scrum? It's actually the other way around. I wouldn't even say like it's the 100% true of other way around. Agile is a way of working. Like being agile is like being ready to continuously change and evolve and learn. Scrum is a subset of the agile methodology, which believes that there are Scrum principles, there are some Scrum ceremonies that you follow. Let me say it in one sentence. Scrum has defined ways of steps or practices that you must do. When you say you're agile, it means you can change, you can evolve, you don't follow a fixed process. Depending on external or internal factors, you may change. So you can put in Scrum and Kanban a little under agile as the broader category of the type of methodology that you might be using. Uh, we will not need to share the recording because the recording will be here. This is a YouTube live stream. You can always come back to this channel and you will find the stream right here, 1DAC. All right. Yeah, Galen brings it perfectly. Waterfall is predictive. That is typically known for deliverables, building a house or building a ship. Until you build your ground floor, you can't build your first floor. Right. So in that manner, where it's not, predictable for work efforts that wasn't done, you would want to do in a waterfall methodology. I like this. There's a difference between small a agile and capital A agile. That is correct. That is true, Gillen. All right, let's talk a little bit about Kanban as well. But yeah, so let's talk about first Kanban, then we'll briefly touch Scrum also. So when we say Kanban, Kanban is specifically better in a model where you are working in a support model. Let's say, for example, where your ops, you have a continuous flow. You're not working in sprints. Sprints is a time boxed events of 1, 2, 3, or 4 weeks where you pick up certain requirements, work on it, test them, release it, and pick the next set of requirements. So that circle that we just talked about, that's basically a sprint, right? So that's Scrum. In Kanban, you would want to pick one, work on it, finish next, pick next, like how you would work in a support model, because work arrives, you prioritize it depending on what the customer wants, depending on how your availability is. You pull it, you finish it. There are work in progress limits. That's the key term, because you wouldn't want to have 50 items in your work in progress limits if you've small team. So have your work in progress limits set and then move on into specific time boxes and move it across the journey. Scaled agile or safe is a methodology that is more preferable at an enterprise scale, where multiple teams are aligned on shared objectives. You have your PI planning, which is program increment planning. Basically, you have your agile release trains. In Jira, you can look at advanced roadmaps in a way how you can do a basic version of it. There are better tools which can help you do safe deployment within the Atlassian ecosystem. The first name that would come to mind is Jira Line, and then there are some partners who have great add-ons in the marketplace as well, which help you with that as well. All right. And of course, hybrid is where you have a mixed approach where you kind of combine elements as needed. Understand that at the end of the day, the goal is not to follow a methodology. The goal is to get the job done. How do you get the job done? By whatever means necessary. So, for a good project manager, it's good to be always in the beginning itself, first understand what is the right tool or what is the right methodology for the project that you're working on. Pick it on the basis of what your end goal is, how much time do you have, what are the key traits, and then you can choose your Jira template. So, that being said, now let us shift our focus into projects in Jira. So, what you're seeing here in my screen is the Atlassian uh, the landing page of all spaces that I have on one of my test sites. What you're seeing is different types of projects. What I'm going to do is just show you how you can select or create a project. When you click on create a project, Jira is nice enough to give you options or templates. So if you're doing software development, you can look at, I want to do agentic engineering, I want to do Kanban, Scrum. Some of this might be a little overwhelming. You might see premium as a tag. That means if you're on the premium subscription, you might get that feature. Some of these might not be available if you're on standard. So just understand, like for example, top level planning might not be there if you're on standard, or if you hit trial, you might get it for a couple of weeks. uh, the most used two schemes here are Kanban and Scrum. So Kanban, as I mentioned, if you're working in a waterfall project, you can definitely use Kanban still. Don't have to necessarily use just a product roadmap or a normal project management template. You can use something under the work management as well, where there's a basic project management template as well. But I do recommend uh, using Kanban if you're on Waterfall, because there are benefits of using software methodologies in here. And then you have your Scrum in there as well. All right, let's come back. So that's the Scrum and that's the Kanban. Specifically, if you're talking about Waterfall, there are some terms that you would see there, which is company managed. Now, company managed is a way or a type of work where you have more control within the teams who are actually building and maintaining the entire instance. So there are two types of projects. So let me say I select Kanban, I say scroll down, I say use template, and now it tells me whether you want it to be team managed or company managed. Now, team managed is where these users are more accustomed to how the system works. You would be more flexible with them making changes on the fly. Would not recommend for a starter person. You would want to set up a company managed project where you would work in a more standard way, the process that has been defined by the Jira admins or the process champions in your organization. You select that model and then you move forward with that. What it does and how it differentiates, we'll cover in the coming episodes, and more in probably some of it in today's class as well. All right, so we've talked about what Scrum project does, Kanban project does. We'll go into boards in a minute. Uh, Advanced roadmap is a beautiful feature. It has evolved from a place where it was a very basic kind of a feature where you were able to look at multiple projects together, to a place where when you do top level planning, you can actually use advanced level roadmaps, and it lets you create layers above epics for broader initiatives. It gives you dedicated space to organize your initiatives. You can find out dependencies. You can visually see some of these things. uh, you know like you can plan out scenarios. You can say, all right, if one of my team members went on leave and this task doesn't happen on time, what will happen in a best case, worst case scenario? So that's actually a really good tool now at where it is, and with Rovo it's getting better each day. So that's about the advanced roadmaps. And of course, if you are using hybrid, you can pull up wherever whatever you want, build a custom configuration, but document it. That's a that's a tip that I would definitely recommend. If you're a new project manager and you're pulling aspects from multiple places, document what your starting config is, because you don't want to stray too far away from it, right? All right, let's move on. We've talked a little about how or what your first type of project looks like. Let me quickly look at the comments as well. All right, Gillen is telling more about Scrum. Yes, that's right, Gillen. Thank you for sharing that with us. No specific questions, so we'll come back. We've talked about what these processes and methodologies are, but the goal here is again not to use Jira. The goal is not to find a project that you know gets more people in Jira to log tickets or log work items now, or even log time. The goal is to get the job done. So once you find what the correct approach is, what you need to identify is first, like, the project type question will always come into picture, whether it's Scrum, Kanban, or any other type of project you're picking. So whether you want more autonomy for the team or do you want governance? Sadly, there's no middle layer right now. So you can either choose whether you want your team managed projects where your team gets more autonomy, they can tweak workflows, they can make their own fields uh, without an admin. That's the key term. If you've got a site admin, and if you're confident enough, by all means ask your site admin to create a team managed project for you. Know that it might become a little chaotic if you're early starter, because it does give you more flexibility, but with more flexibility people might create everybody might create their own workflows, right? It's great for startups though, like people who are just getting up and going. They've got some small team members, and like you're trying to experiment to understand what is possible, what is not. It's great for those kind of teams. But when you're talking about a bigger centralized governance, you would want shared workflows, you want consistent fields. You wouldn't want, let's say for example, impact, right, is one field. Let's say for example you're having, you might not want an impact to be a sev 1, sev 2, sev 3, sev 4. Somebody else might want an impact as uh, amber, green, or blue for complete, or yellow for moderate, in that order, right? But when the confusion would come in a actual deployed project, you wouldn't want that kind of confusion to creep in into the daily workings of a project. So company managed projects gives you that governance, gives you control. It's better for large organizations and who are looking for standardization. That's the key term in here. Neither is wrong. Both of them have their own context, their own benefits, right? It's just picking the right tool for the right project. All right, let me look at the comment. This session for AIPM for beginners. Yes, it is. Edits by shots. It is. That's the agenda. It's the episode 1. We're starting from scratch. So if you are first time opening Jira or using the teamwork collection, again, that's the keyword, because we will cover about Loom and Confluence in coming episodes as well. This whole series is from beginner to expert. All right, let's go back. Let's go back. Let's talk about the board style. So boards in Jira are independent of the type of project that you're working on as well. So you can build, if you want, a Kanban board separately and pull in information from your Scrum board in it. The beauty of that is that you don't have to restrict to a feature of a specific board. The board style does tell you uh, it's much more than just a cosmetic change, right? It determines whether you will work in sprints, or some of your teams will work in sprints, or in a continuous flow, which is Kanban. It changes your reporting, it'll change your ceremonies, it'll change your entire delivery rhythm. That board will define how you run your project. And the third, and one of the most important things that a lot of teams miss out on, is the issue hierarchy. What goes on top, whether it's epic story, subtask, the most standard. How deep do you want to go, right? Depending on team size, depending on complexity, how granular your stakeholders want that aspect to be. Over engineering may be very dangerous. Let me also say this right now, because if you build a 8-layer structure that is very tough to build in Jira itself, by the way, it might be a problem just waiting to happen, right? So understand how you want, like I definitely would recommend start with epic story subtask. I would say more than enough for somebody who's just starting out in the Atlassian ecosystem. All right, let's go to Jira now. Let me switch to Jira, and now what we are going to do is, let me go back to template. Let's create a project. Let's create a Scrum project. Let's go to software development. I'm creating a Scrum project. Use template. I'm naming this template as AIPM Masterclass. How is my space managed? I'm saying company manage. I'm taking the template of Scrum. If I see details, it will tell me that you can now plan your work in a backlog, you can organize cycles, and you can understand your team's velocity. Right? That's good. That's what I want. Let me select that again. Click next. This is one of my favorite aspects of Jira. You just decided your project, you just select your team members. So I say, all right, none of these guys I want in. I want, let's say, let me add myself here as well. Oh, oh, it's the administrator. So let me keep these guys as the administrator, and I click on next. It's saying connect with the Confluence space. We've not created that yet. We can create if you already got a space connected or created. You can connect that here. If not, you can create that later. Don't need to do that. You click on done, and that's it. Your project is created. This is your project, and this is your board. From here, you can now start creating uh, issues or work items in the new terminology. All right. Now, let me. Oh, so awesome thing about a new site these days is you will keep getting these things. So you see how awesome it is that it's now saying show, don't tell. You can record your processes and generate a work item automatically. Let's say try it out. You see, it'll ask me to record a work item right here using Loom, which is one of the things that we are going to cover about in coming episodes. How you can use Loom to fast track your issue creation, fast track your meeting notes, your PRDs, your issues, all of those using Confluence and Loom together. All right. In the beginning, by the way, let me also show you a couple more things because we're talking about beginner stuff here. As a project admin or as a space admin in this context, when you click on space settings, you can see these items in the new project that have been created. If you get your project summary, oh, it's loading. Give it a minute. There it is. This is our project summary. That means there are a lot of terminologies here that you may not understand if this is your first time joining here, specifically around issue type schemes, around workflows. Workflows is still pretty common, but like understand that any scheme in Jira are set of rules. That's all they are at its heart. They are a set of rules which govern how that specific functionality will work. So your work type scheme or your issue type scheme will define how these work types behave, what fields they will have using the fields issue type scheme, what priority will be set in your system, what will take it from initiation to closure. A workflow is a life cycle of a project. That's what we call it many times. Like so, get started in to do, ends at done or completed or resolved, whatever you want to call it. Right. So that's your workflow. We're not going to design workflow in this because that's more of an admin task, but we will talk about how you can use AI to, make it a little bit better. Your screens define what you see in a specific create screen, bug screen, epic screen, what fields you want to have mandatory, all of those, what notifications will come up when you create a system, when you create a Jira ticket, or when somebody tags you, who gets notified, who gets access to these issues, right? When you create a project, maybe it's a sensitive project. Maybe you don't want to give access to everybody in your Jira instance. It's supposed to be just for 4 people. Maybe it's just your CEO, CTO, or whoever that is. So you can control all that via permissions. Your roles define those aspects in your permission. So let me show you quickly roles. So as you can see here, as of now, Alana Grant is an administrator. But let me just add few people. Okay. So I am saying I'm adding Cassie and Mitch as collaborators on my project. I am adding Mitch and let's say Alana as members. Each of these terminologies have different meanings. So you'll see now they have multiple roles in here as well. How this differentiates is when you go into permissions, you'll see these are defined in here. So administer projects, you need to have this person. The administrator role can have it. Uh, who can be an assignable user? That means anybody who can be assigned an issue has to have either application access or a space rule. Let's say you want to restrict it to only members. You can do that. You can make a version of this default software scheme, customize it for this project, and then do that. More admin stuff, but we'll just giving you a basic rundown of how a normal Jira project would look like. All right, let's take a step back. There are a lot more features. We will talk about those in the coming weeks. But let's step back into again the landing page of the projects. As a PM, what you see, this is your Scrum board. This is where your backlog lives. Backlog, if you're a Scrum Master, you already know, is the place that you play around most. Backlog is a list of all the work items that your project will do, not the ones that you will do in that sprint. That's a sprint backlog. Your backlog is your project's work breakdown structure, right? So if you're building a house, your backlog is every step or every task that you have in that project. What you build in, let's say, summer is your sprint, some way, right? You can pick, okay, these are the items that I'll do in summer. Closure, next one, what I will do in autumn, what I'll do in fall. In that manner, you can break it down. All right, let's come back a little again. Let me switch from Jira to what we were talking about around the decisions that shape our project. So our project is created. Now let's talk about how your workflows are supposed to be designed, right? Basic, most basic workflow that you'll see in Jira. You might say there's no need for in review as well. Earlier it used to be to do in progress done, but now I think in review has shown its importance. It's now shown as a very important piece of the puzzle, right? So here is a workflow. I'll show you this in Jira in a minute as well. You've got your 4 statuses. You've got to do, in progress, in review, and done. I know, but some of you might be thinking like, what about QA? What about UAT sign off? What about waiting for XYZ to approve? Right. So I I understand that's what you want to build, right? As a new PM. That's what you've seen in your Excels, in your PPTs, when you're submitting your status report. But start simple. If you're just starting out, start simple. Start with this basic workflow and try to map what your current processes have. So all of those are in progress, right? How does it really matter that much? If it does, go as you go on, please feel free to add a status. Understand what that status mean. If you're a team managed project, you can do it on your own. But if you're having that company manage as your first project is actually good, because you'll be restricted to copying whatever dysfunctional aspects of process you had in your previous system. This is your chance to start something with a cleaner mindset, right? So I would recommend start with this and see then what are the basic and more important steps in your workflows that you would want to carry forward. Then ask your admin to build those. If you're on team manager, you can directly add, right? Because every status that you add is a status that somebody has to manually update, or even using automation, somebody has to update. So every status is a place where work can get stuck if you have not configured it correctly. Actually, have some design principles when it comes to how you're designing your workflows. Most importantly is improving visibility. Can everyone see where the work is standing with just the name, right? And that's the best step. So that's why to do is very important. It easily tells you what is this specific status in a ticket. Let me also show you, if again we are talking about day one, right? So let me also show you how this will actually look like. So I am creating my first story. Actually, I'm going to create a task. Okay. This is a test task for AI PM Masterclass. All right. Now let's use Rovo here. Please fill in the description. Let's see what Rovo fills. Now, what I'm suggesting here is a lot of project managers, again, if you're coming from MSP, you might have your headings as your tasks, right? You might not have your descriptions. Leverage Rovo. Context is everything, right? Whether it's your information that is sharing with your team members, or whether it's something that you want to just tell the system because you want to leverage that, right? So, all right, Rover is nice enough to just add a very basic task workflow. But if it was, and we'll see, if it was a little more crucial or a little more critical, like for example, building a test plan for XYZ platform, Rovo will understand your context and build that description accordingly. So definitely recommend using Rovo to build your description or at least improve your description, because that's also a feature that you can do. If you click on this, it will automatically do this and you'll see how you can do this. Why I'm suggesting or spending so much time on this is I've seen countless project managers struggle with task name as the item in the description copy pasted from the summary. That sucks. Don't do that, because that will make the person who's the assignee confused. He will come back to you and ask questions. And why do you want to repeat when you can just get that sorted out on the day one? And so when you're creating an issue, put in the details, put in your acceptance criteria, put in your review guidelines, whatever you have, or to get started, you can do that. If you're starting in from day one, let's say you're bulk importing, you can probably use bulk importer and pull all of them together, then use Rovo to get that updated. But if you're starting from scratch and you're starting to build your workflow, I would recommend using something like this. All right. You don't have to select sprint. If you have an Epic, you can do that. Epic, as I said, is a larger body of work that will help you see these things in a better manner. So your Epic, let's say you're building a website, right? So your Epic is building a payments gateway. Your story is integrating MasterCard to that payment page. It's a subset of that specific building a payments gateway. And you might have more than one, of course, more than one tasks or stories under that one giant epic. Labels, very crucial term. Again, we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks. But like for the first time that we're creating this, let's say this is a task that we are starting on 17th. I'm just clicking on create. Let's see if our issue is created. Yes, it is. Here is our first task. And let's expand it to a full screen. And this is our beautiful workflow. This is what I was talking about. Right now, as you can see, it is to do, in progress, and done. And what this star means, that flash symbol or flash logo that you're seeing there is the thunder logo. Is that means any transition can take you from one place to another. That means you can jump between to do to done to in progress to done to do in that manner. If you want a more linear flow, you can ask your project manager, or if you're the PM, you can ask your admin to get that created, because you might want to, let's say, after it's done, it shouldn't go back to in progress. It should first go back to do and then only do it. In that case, remove the transition all from done. So your create takes you to do. That's your first step, and from there it can move around anywhere. All right, that is your workflow. That's how you can create, or that's how you should have your workflow. Okay, let me switch back. Let me quickly look at the time. Okay, we've got 20 minutes, not too far behind what we were planning to cover today. Let's look at how you can now start using uh, AI at some of these places. But before you even commit to specifically using Rovo, or how you use AI at some of these places, let me also tell you what are the easier options, right? One of the first ways that you can start using AI or Rovo in Atlassian ecosystem is challenging your own assumptions. So you can stress test. So let's say you've built down your entire project work breakdown structure in your backlog, or if you're using Kanban, it's in there. You've got your timelines, you've got your risk assumptions, all of that in the work types, right? So those work types could be anything, remember? So let me show you quickly this also. So your work type are your buckets of work, right? And again, this is configured by the Jira admin. Since this is a company managed project, we are looking at the ones that have already been defined for Scrum type project. But you can get this custom. So if you want a content type issue or work type, you can get that added. You can define what the workflow for content would be. You can have a you can have a incident, you can have a change, you can have a reason, whatever you may want, and in that order build it. Why I'm telling you this is because you might have a different change workflow than a bug workflow, which might be a little more complicated, and it's perfectly all right to have that, right? But once you build that entire work breakdown structure, use your AI to challenge some of those assumptions. How can, let's say, for example, ask Rovo, if I've got a team of 5 members, uh, there's a 2 week risk where one member is going on vacation. Do you think we'll be able to complete the project if everybody is 100% allocated? I'm not saying that AI will give you the answer. Know this. But it will give you an angle that you may not have considered. And that's a very crucial piece of the puzzle when you're building or getting started, right? Specifically in a scenario where you're starting fresh. Use AI as your teammate, even if not your teammate. Use it as a tool. Like over the years, I've come to not be much happy about calling AI my teammate, but use it as a feature, use it as a support, use it as an escalator which will take you faster to the place where you want to be. All right. Compare your approaches. Compare whether you would work better in a Scrum project or you would work better in a Kanban model. Right. You can create a, as I mentioned, the boards are independent. So you can create a Scrum project and then you can create a Kanban board if you want for your execution for your team as well. I used to work with a team where they were working on a Scrum model, but because their sprint were 4 weeks, what they would do is not look at their Scrum board, but actually work from a Kanban board. It was a subset of the team which was working on that project. And they managed it beautifully. Again, there's no wrong angles until your velocity is showing you that you're always missing your deadlines. Like your committed versus delivered is always like a failure, and it's a trend that you can very easily see. I wouldn't say there is any wrong way. Experiment, figure out what's best for you, compare approaches with AI or without AI over a period of time, and then get started from there, right? Use workflows as the ones that I just showed you to generate some of the status options, transition rules based on what your team might need. Now, transition rules are a little more advanced, nuanced topic, but we will talk about what those rules could mean. A transition rule will basically enable or stop or automate something that needs to be done or shouldn't be done. Let's take an example. Let's go back to Jira and see this, how, what we're talking about. All right. Let's say this specific task goes to in progress. Now, let's look at workflow. Now, what we are saying is, let's say, for example, if it needs to go from in progress, which it says is the current status, to done, I want a specific person's approval. I want a rule that only a person in the project manager role or the QA role, let's be more realistic, only the people in the QA role should be able to move a specific ticket to done. When you build that transition rule or flow, now those terms are also coming into picture. When you build those systems into picture, it elevates the experience that you may want in your team, right? So you can talk about those things with Rovo, how that will work, how that will look like in an extended period of time over your team, right? Also do trade-offs. Now that is one of the loser uh, one of the loser capabilities within AI if you've been using AI for a while, because AI does tend to agree with you, right? You say, hey, will I be able to do it? We'll say, yeah, looks like that. Yeah, we will be able to do it. But you say, oh, but this person is going on vacation. Oh, you're right. This person is going on vacation. We might want to think it like that. So if you're a new person getting started with AI, don't take the first answer that AI offers you. Challenge AI, tell it why my own approach could be wrong, ask it to defend its own thesis, cross question your own judgment and AI's judgment. In that order, and again, play around with Rovo. Go give Rovo context, right? So the more information that you give Rovo, the better it will be in making these decisions. So it doesn't replace your judgment. It gives you more options. It gives you more ideas that you might not have thought about, right? So let's say, okay, let's look at this. Okay, let's go back to Jira, and this is where it all starts, right? So let's go in. Oh, by the way, what you're seeing here is the one robo chat that I had just asked it to do. I'm asking it to start a new chat. I'm closing this. It's asking me how can I help. How you can help is, let's say I am starting a Scrum project with 6 developers and a PO. Oh, typo. Okay. We have let's say 2 week sprint, and I want you to suggest a workflow that will balance, let's say, speed and quality. Perfect. I've asked Rovo to recommend something to me. Let's see what Rovo says. All right, let's give it a minute. Okay, it's already started. It's saying 2 weeks means 10 working days. This is how you can do it. You can do a sprint planning for 2 to 3 hours. You can have a mid sprint sync or 30 minutes on Friday. You can freeze the features. Only bug fixes should be done on day 9. That means that's actually smart. And day 10, Friday, you should have a sprint review, retrospective, backlog refinement for the next sprint. It tells you a little bit about capacity and story points, saying if it's 6 devs, you're probably somewhere around this much story points, somewhere around leaving 10 to 15% buffer. Again, it's telling you about buffer. It can tell you about the quality gates that you should have your definition of ready. I've spent I've spent hours, countless hours on PMs, coaching them about how their definition of ready and definition of done is more important than any other document. If something is picked by a developer and he comes back to you, I'm not clear on what is required from me, or the QA comes back and says, is this what the user wants? You failed at defining your definition of ready and definition of done. It might not be 100% on you to build it. Don't think you need to be technical here, but it's your responsibility to make sure that it's there, right? So definition of ready and definition of done are two things that define whether your ticket will go from the life cycle in a happy manner or in a sad, stuck, lonely manner. All right. So it's giving you some parameters for your definition ready and definition of done. It's giving you a little bit of team collaboration ideas. It's telling you how you should do your daily sync up. Pretty elaborate. It's telling you a little bit about backlog hygiene, how you should do it. It's telling you speed and Kanban. And the bigger important thing is now suggesting a workflow. It's saying go from backlog to ready to in progress to in review or QA or testing and done. Use swim lanes by Epic to give PO visibility. That's great. So we'll cover this exact. What we'll do is we'll build this entire workflow, and then in the coming episode we'll see how that will help out some of the users and questions that we might have. That's great. So Rovo told us what could be a better workflow if we were building to something like that. Like, I didn't hand over control, right? I asked for a dialogue. I asked for an opinion. AI propose. I can push back on some of these things, right? Let's say, yeah, let's do that. Let me do that also. Okay. I ask it. I want to have a mandatory code review with PO as well as part of status. Okay, a lot of scrum masters and project managers would know this. Like a lot of time, what happens is you go to a project which is the PO is very technical. You might want to have like a better, stronger PO, so you can have a PO review. Agreed. Maybe it would have pushed back, like as I mentioned, right? Like you asked, AI generally will tend to agree with you. Now I'm going to push it back and say, do you really think it would be beneficial or should we just work with QA status? Now see how the AI will respond. Okay, you see it now switched a little. Say if your PO is available and technically comfortable, you can do this. Otherwise, you can switch. The better alternative is you can use just in review QA and done. So AI will agree with you most of the times. It's on you to make the better judgment, understand, challenge, question, doubt, put all of that in AI and ask AI. Uh, give it those parameters and then take that decision. All right, let's minimize this. Let's come back. What's next? So, oh, that's again just we're almost up on time, but we've got almost 8 minutes, so that's good. So, I wanted to put this slide here because this is what I've seen, specifically people like me. Okay, so I was a PM, a Scrum Master, a Safe Agilist, and Safe Program Consultant as part of my trade. But at heart, I'm also a Jira administrator. I've been a Jira administrator since 2018, somewhere around 2018. No, 2016 actually. Data center, server, data center, cloud. Right. I've seen the evolution. I've seen the journey. We've done migrations. So a lot of times, if you're a person who's like me, or you might, be a Jira admin who's transitioning to a PM, or a PM who's transitioning, trying to understand how Jira works in your organization as well, it gets a little critical sometimes that one hat outweighs the other. Your guiding principle should be your Jira processes or your Jira workflows or a Jira system should support your process, specifically when you're adapting to a tool. Now, I know some of you would say, but hey, you just told us to use company managed project and not just bring everything. I stand by both of these statements. So you have to make that middle line when you're getting started. If you are asking people to come to Jira from, let's say, Excel or Microsoft project, it's easier to get lost in the craziness that a tool like Jira can bring in or a tool like Confluence can bring in. You may want to have a little bit breathing room for those team members so that they can see some of the things that, like for example, you can create a demo project. I've done this. I've created a demo project to say, hey, when we are mature enough, this is how it will look like, but today we start here. We don't reach there today. We don't have those 8 statuses. Let's start from these 4 today, and over a period of time we will evolve. We'll see out of the 8 that we had in the previous system how many we actually need. And like, long story short, we actually just needed 6. We kicked out 2 workflow statuses, uh, reduced some latency that we had in the system. We removed some of the blockers that we used to have. We identified people who had caused problems than the processes, and we used to keep blaming processes. When we fixed the processes, we figured out the problem, that there was a knowledge transfer problem, there was a learning gap problem, and you will identify these things as well as you go along in your journey of moving along, this specific part. That being said, so I think I want to take a pause here and look at if there are any questions. Rohit says, in this scenario, I'm assuming it is leveraging information context from the teamwork graph. Great point, Rohit. But I wouldn't say it will leverage on day one. Like, there is no teamwork graph on day one, right? When you're just getting started. But teamwork graph is a powerful principle or layer. It's actually a data layer which powers Rovo on all the decisions and all the all the recommendations it makes, right? So this teamwork graph is your data, your company's data, how you use it, how your team members use it, how it is connected to multiple systems, and all of that gives context to Rovo. If you're hearing the word Rovo just today, Rovo is the AI answer from Atlassian, and what it does is basically talks to everything within the ecosystem and outside. So if you've got SharePoint, you can connect SharePoint with Atlassian. If you've got Google Slides, you can connect Google Slides with Atlassian. So in that manner, you can have all that information, and it feeds the data layer, which is the teamwork graph. And then Rovo leverages that teamwork graph information, taking full care of the permissions and recommendations and like permissions and like roles that you have in the project, to make sure that you're giving the correct information to your team members as well. So yes, Rohit, thank you for pointing that out. In coming episode, we will talk about teamwork graph. I think episode 3 or 4 is where I plan to have much more conversation around teamwork graph. All right. So this is what basically what we hopefully you'll be able to do. You'll be able to select the right delivery methodology, whether it was Scrum, Kanban, Safe, or hybrid, depending on that previous table that we saw. You can now create a Jira project that reflects your approach. You can build some workflows that your team will enjoy, not just follow bureaucracy. And you can use AI to strengthen your planning. Now, that being said, that's where we'll draw a line today. We are 4 minutes up. We'll probably take a pause here. Uh, Next episode, we talk more about executing that work. So we've talked about planning a little bit here. We'll talk about how you can take those business goals into executable work. With that, I stop my screen sharing. And thank you all for joining me on this episode. We started with somewhere around 55, 60 people. There are 61 people right now watching this stream. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was super fun. If you're joining us for the first time on the QuizBiz channel, do share, do consider subscribing. That will give you notification on all the fun stuff that we do. We do a lot of quizzes. We do a lot of fun ways, gamified ways of learning. And if you have any inputs, use the comment section. Very happy to take positive or negative comments, whatever you may have. Tips for future episodes. One thing that I'm also thinking about is by the end of episode 4, I'll try to put out a site where we can play around together. Please don't break that site. Please don't hack somebody's email. But I'm hoping that we can publicly put out a site where I can say, hey, guys, come on and play around. If you don't have access to a site, if you have a site to play around, feel free to use that. But if you don't, I would be very happy to share one site with you where we can play around for a while. That being said, thank you. At the end of the session. Thank you for joining QuizBiz. Thank you for joining community-led classes. And I will see you on the next episode. Thank you and have a great rest of the week.
Dig a little deeper.